Hey there, Alpha Bytes. It's your good buddy JP here again, bringing you another personal video made just especially for all of you. I want to start by saying I just want to apologize to anyone who had seen the last video I uploaded. I did make mention that I wanted to have a video uploaded around Labor Day weekend, which we did not. Here we are on November 1st. So I just want to apologize if you were really hoping for a video to come out then. It really didn't happen. We had a lot going on here, and schedule-wise just didn't work out. We had an idea for a video. We wanted to get actually Eliza on camera, and we wanted to do one with her, which we are going to hopefully do, I'd say, within the coming weeks. And we have an idea for a topic that we want to do. It's just, again, trying to find time to get that recorded and also to get it uploaded here as well, which we usually do in tandem, but sometimes till we sit down and do it, it's a long process, basically what it comes down to. So I apologize for that. We here at the studio, we want to just hope that you guys really had a great Labor Day weekend, enjoying your family, your friends, whether you went, out to the movies, whether you went shopping at the mall, maybe some of you went to the beach. I know it was a great, very great weekend for that, to kick off the rest of summer. We really hope you had a good, fun, and safe time doing that. That's the most important thing. We also hope now, since we just passed Halloween, hope you all had a great and very fun and safe Halloween as well. Hope you all got a lot of candy and enjoyed it. And just overall, I hope the holidays have been going well for you, and especially we got some great holidays coming up. Thanksgiving, Christmas, some of my personal favorites, so I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be great. We're looking forward to having that and spending more time with the family and friends and your friends, which is always a good thing to do. And it's always very enjoyable when you do that. But today I wanted to do a video for you guys, something that is very, very, I want to say personal, but it's a very big favorite of mine. And my video I want to do today is going to be on doing talking about one of my most favorite shows on cable television today, the AMC hit smash series, The Walking Dead. And yes, I am a very huge diehard fan, which I'm sure a lot of you guys who are going to watch this video are. I hope so, because I really been wanting to share some things. I've been debating about what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to get this video out before season 6 premiere, which it has now. We're about going into the 4th week tonight. Episode 4 is tonight, so did not get a chance to do that. So this video is going to be sort of a potpourri of sorts. I want to talk about a few things. Mostly going to feature questions because of the last episode from last week. If you guys have, those of you who have seen it, there were a lot of questions raised that really have been spreading all over social media. Pretty much everywhere. If you Google search it, all these questions come up. Big things to talk about. Lots been going on, so I want to cover that. And as you will notice, though, in the caption, this is going to be a two-part video because I think probably one of the biggest questions that we're going to discuss is going to probably need its own video, just because, like I said, again, a lot has happened, and if you've been following the show, you know what I'm talking about. So we're going to get to a lot of different things, but I just want something I've been wanting to share and talk about, so that's why I got the gumption to get this up and running. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of my predictions, the things that I was expecting to happen, that I at least thought would happen, things like that. And then we're going to go over some things that have been going on in the series so far. So just a quick recap, and this will be a spoiler alert for any of you who have not seen or have not caught up to the season 5 finale of The Walking Dead, which premiered back in I think it was February. We ended this past February. So if you haven't seen that yet, if you have a DVR, if you recorded, and have not had a chance to watch it, or if you did, whatever. Just don't watch this video, basically. If you think this is going to spoil anything for you, there's nothing too major, but I just don't want to ruin anything for anybody. But I do want to do a quick recap just so we can kind of tie into where we're going with season 6. So basically, where we saw our group of survivors, Rick and the others, from season 5, pretty much the latter half of that season, we saw them on the road again. They pretty much were living day by day, barely finding any shelter, starving, not a lot of food. Basically all the necessities were running out. We saw them coming off a great aftermath of dealing with, Gareth and the other termites earlier in the beginning of the season. So now here they are again on the road. They stumbled across a man by the name of Aaron, who shares with them that he's been watching them, following them. He kind of explains further that he is from a walled group of community called Alexandria. As he explains in further detail, they've been a group of survivors that have pretty much been together since the start of the apocalypse. They've just been making it. They've got all the necessities that you could hope for to survive. And so he basically tells the group that, he's seen what they can do, that they're capable of surviving, that they've clearly made that pretty poignant to this point from what he's been observing, and that he wants them to come back with them and have a chance to audition to become part of the community. And then as we see, of course, everybody's sort of skeptical at first. They don't know who this guy is. They're sort of like, well, do we trust him? Considering where we've come before with other groups that have been, they've been dealing with throughout the course of the series. But gradually, they kind of grow to trust them a little bit. They go along. He takes them back to Alexandria. They get to see for themselves the city, and it's pretty impressive. And they're really bewildered by the fact that the city seems relatively unscathed at all. The group of survivors have been sheltered. There's been no signs of any problems whatsoever, and they're really just totally floored by this. They get to go in. Aaron does introduce them to Deanna, who is, of course, the leader of the Alexandrians. She is the matriarch, as it were, of that group, who runs basically the entire town along with her husband Reg. They're kind of team there. They do that, and of course, the group goes through the process of auditioning, and ultimately they become part. They're offered to stay, in which they do. And then it does lead to some problems because a lot of the other Alexandrians, those who live in the city, are having a hard time adjusting to this group because, again, they don't know anything about them, where they've come from, where they've been. They're just basically very skeptical of the fact that why are we letting these newcomers in? We don't trust them, especially coming with Rick, where as they begin to adjust, Rick kind of has or I should say, develops an interest in Jesse, who is a Alexandrian member who lives in the city, and of course her with her husband and two children. Her husband Pete has been abusive, and so basically it's kind of one of those. I guess you could say it's sort of like a love triangle where Rick kind of has this thing where he's overly protective and it leads to all kinds of problems, and Rick kind of becomes unhinged a little bit again based upon his emotions and being driven to act on them. So that ultimately leads to the fact of, it comes down to the Alexandrians saying, we really should vote to say, does he get to stay? Do we kick just him out? A lot of these things are happening. So a lot of things, and, it's really interesting because then, of course, we see at the end where basically, especially from Deanna's perspective, she realizes, after the unfortunate death of Reg due to Pete coming back being enraged that Rick got involved with his family, she sees the horror of how life outside of the walls of Alexandria can be and what people are capable of, gives Rick the go ahead to put Pete down. And at the very end, which is very exciting for Walking Dead fans that are hardcore, we see Morgan finally catching up to the group, which is very unique and that's great. So that's basically an overview of what happened in the fifth season. Now, from what we've seen so far this season, I have to say, first of all, I really loved the premiere of season 6. I think it was great. It's always great when you get 90 minutes of The Walking Dead, right? I mean, you can't go wrong there. I especially liked how they did all the flashbacks in black and white. I think it kind of was nice how they didn't waste a lot of time or episodes in trying to explain what happened between the season 5 finale and now coming into season 6. So basically, we see everybody's still kind of dealing with the aftermath effects of what happened in the season 5 finale. We see, basically the Alexandrians are becoming a little more receptive to Rick and the others. Not much, but they're kind of sort of slowly working that frame of, okay, we're kind of getting in the flow here. They're kind of showing us how we can survive and things like that. But what's interesting is the basics setup for the big storyline is, which leaves the lingering question of how did the Alexandrians manage to survive this well with very little interaction with the outside world, with walkers, with other people. They have not had any problems, any issues, which is pretty clearly evident by the fact that they can't really fight. They're not prepared how to deal with certain situations. So that's sort of the big question there. And as it's revealed in the first episode, we see that what it boils down to is the discovery that is found by Rick. Rick goes off on sort of I guess you could say a patrol kind of mission. He goes a little further outside of town. He's accompanied by Morgan, and they happen to stumble across an abandoned quarry, to which Rick's horror, he realizes it all becomes clear now how the Alexandrians have been able to survive, and that is that the abandoned quarry is full of walkers. I would say somewhere in the range of 2,000 to 3,000 strong. And so basically what we've seen is that walkers just over time have been, very just walking clumsily and just stumbling and falling into this quarry, and it's like catching fish in a barrel. They just come piling up and piling up. There are two tractor trailer beds that have been sort of at an angle where they've been acting as doors, which has kind of been corralling all those walkers in. But you can see little by little as he's observing what's going on, they've begun to kind of wriggle through and are starting to break loose. So he sees the potential threat for this big problem that can happen, in which he goes back, tells some of the others, and they all come back more to see what he's talking about, and they realize that yeah, this is a potentially huge, disastrous problem. So then the question is becomes they sort of in detail plan what do we do? How do we handle this? And it's basically decided that the best way to do it, and which leads mostly to Rick suggesting, is they do a version of the Pied Piper, which basically is they're going to lead the walkers away from Alexandria. They're going to try to steer them in different directions so that they don't have to take them on head on, because really they can't. The numbers are too overwhelming to handle directly. So after debating this, Rick and some of the others decide they choose how they want to do it. They pick volunteers, and it basically boils down to the team of Sasha, Abraham, and Daryl. Sasha and Abraham get into a car, and Daryl is on his motorcycle that he has newly acquired. They are going to act as leaders of the pack. They are going to be at the head of the herd and are going to lead them out and be sort of the conductor of that marching band, more or less. They're going to be leading the way. Rick, Glenn, and Michonne, along with several of the other Alexandrian characters, who we'll talk about in a little bit, um, they're going to be on foot, kind of running through the woods that they go by and the roads. They're going to be alongside of them, acting sort of as like ranchers that are herding cattle. They're going to make sure nobody wanders off. And they're going to try to keep the line flowing straight, and so that it doesn't scatter and go off everywhere. Um, and so we see how they begin to initiate this plan, which goes off fairly well. I mean, they have also set up certain checkpoints to where they have certain one checkpoint they have flare guns, which they use as noise and as visual, as light, to draw the attention of the walkers, to get them to keep moving in the direction they want them to go. And things seem to go really well there. And so that's basically how the season starts. So not to get too descriptive and not to be too long-winded with that, because I want to talk a little bit more about that, but that's going to go into the question portion here with this potpourri video I want to do. Because there are a lot of questions that were raised, again, from the third episode that we saw last week. And so I'd like to kind of go into those questions and then analyze them, give you some of my thoughts, and take on in certain situations and things. I'm sorry, I'm kind of itchy today. Go over that and see where we go from there. So these are some questions that I've seen talked about, posted on different sites, a lot of social media sites, Google. These are questions that a lot of you guys that are you big fans that have been loving the show or watching it religiously have been commenting about. And the first question I want to ask is, and this has been a very big, somewhat not too big, but an interesting one for sure. And just by the way, quick side note, I did want to mention this as well. We are going to do this in a different order. Most videos you see, you kind of have the big questions answered first. I'm going to start the opposite way. I want to do the minor ones, and then we'll save the big ones for the end. And actually, the second part of this video is going to do the biggest question out there. So this question, the first question I want to ask is relatively minor, but it's kind of important. It's one I've been giving a lot of thought of as well. And the question is, have we seen the last of the wolves? Now, just to recap real quickly, the wolves are a group of, we see as a group of nomadic survivors, meaning they don't seem to have any kind of base camp. They just seem to be moving around. We get glimpses of them in the previous season, last season, in season 5. They're the people who've been corralling walkers and carving W's into their heads. We get a better glimpse of them towards the end of last season when Morgan on his own comes across two of the somewhat leaders of the wolves, or wolfites as I've been calling them, and has a little bit of interaction, so we kind of see a little bit more and get a feel for who they are, and see the stage being set that they're going to have a pretty big role as villains in the current season airing now. But so looking at it and what's happened so far, now we see them appear again in episode 2. They launch a ambush attack on Alexandria where they just start coming in, they start killing members of Alexandria, kind of causing sheer panic and terror, because totally catching everybody off guard and nobody knows what to make of it. So uh, you know it's interesting. Some things to note too, which we'll talk about, but it's interesting how they just kind of came out of nowhere, just automatically, and really in a brutality kind of a sheer brutality, they just come in and just start taking people out left and right, and it's kind of interesting because we hadn't heard anything from them, and all of a sudden they show up. So maybe they knew where the city was and were planning to attack it. Maybe they didn't. It seems interesting because that for it to be totally completely random, I don't think that's totally accurate at all because I think that they knew where the city was and had planned this for a little while. They seem to be quite organized enough to not be doing it just by sheer chance or by dumb luck. But so now we see interestingly how when the attack begins, they slam a tractor trailer into Alexandria, which causes the truck's horn to go off, which as we see it becomes a growing threat because it starts to distract the herd of walkers that the other survivors, the other part of the group is leading away from Alexandria. And so the herd of walkers begins to split off nearly in half because a lot of the walkers hear the sound and they're looking around. They're starting to deviate off the path, which Rick and the others are realizing, oh, we got to really do something here quick because our plan here is going well, and all of a sudden this is starting to take an ugly turn. So they begin to scatter, and this causes sort of a kind of a chaos because they need to contain the situation quickly without allowing it to escalate any further than they need to. Plus, they're wondering too what in the world's going on because obviously the sounds are coming from Alexandria and they don't know what's going on, where, when, who, why, and how, and all that good stuff. So it makes it for a sure interesting entertainment for sure, especially when we're watching it. It's really gripping and heart pounding and exciting. But to answer that question though, have we seen the last of the wolves? I don't know. I'm honestly kind of torn because I kind of have it at a 50-50 chance. And the reason why is this because in the beginning I kind of realized this was sort of my prediction for this season. The Wolves were not going to be a very major threat in this season. They're sort of a minor kind of villain role, kind of like Gareth and the Termites were, just to kind of get the season going. Um, and so I figured that they probably would be. I actually gave them up until about close to, if not the mid-season finale of this season. So it's a little bit sooner, but I didn't peg them as long-term problem causers because I just felt like that, just the nature of who they were just didn't seem like it was going to be a long-standing issue for Rick and the others. But there's some interesting things to consider, which is what's been really thought-provoking for me to ponder over, and hopefully this will be for you guys too. If you haven't thought about this already, is first of all looking at the attack. I would say at most, and this is even being generous, you're looking at maybe I'd say 10 to 12 wolves that were in the city of Alexandria. So the question really is, first of all, we have to ask ourselves in order to answer the big question that we're looking at is is that the entire group? Now, again, since they're being somewhat nomadic, and they're nomads is the sense of they have no place to go, which is what it seems. I would say that yeah, that could have been the whole group, and as we saw, Carol being all badass that she was, took out most of them herself inside the city. And a couple exceptions are a couple where Morgan confronted a couple that he let get away, tried to spare them, in which they came across Rick, and Rick sort of finished the job. He took out the rest of them. So by that accord, I would say, it's pretty fairly likely that we have seen the last of them. But again, considering the numbers, also, looking at that and the fact that could they be a larger group? Could there be another group that's just, we're not aware of, that there's another camp way off somewhere? Because again, they knew where the city was. They obviously had to scout it before. So could that just be a raiding party? Could there be a much bigger group that's going to retaliate when they realize the small group that they had there has been killed off and they're not coming back? That's one possibility to look at it. And so that kind of leaves the door open of maybe not. Maybe we haven't seen the last of them. But for me, ultimately, I think the biggest question that, or the biggest clue that really raised the question for me was that near the end of the second episode where Morgan confronts the remaining wolf fights that are in the city. And he says to them, basically interacting, saying, you guys don't know what you're doing, basically, trying to find out a little bit more about them. Basically we find out too that this group is sort of on a holy pilgrimage. One of the other members says at one point, we're not killing you, because they're being confronted saying by one of the other members of the Alexandria saying, you're killing us, and they're like, no, we're doing you a favor. So it's kind of this holy pilgrimage of, yeah, we're going to do you a favor, we're going to kill you so that you don't have to worry about, the undead nightmare that's walking outside your walls, and you'll be fine, and you'll thank us later, kind of thing. So a misguided concept. Sorry, guys. Screensaver came on and blocked me off. I'm sure you got a lot of me just staring there. I've been trying to figure out how to get back into my computer here, so I apologize. Anyway, continue on. And I'm going to move my mouse here just so that doesn't happen again. So my apologies once again. Um, we see this group as, they're on a mission as they see it, and as misguided as it is, they feel that it's worthwhile to them. And of course, Morgan points out to them near the end. They're saying, you guys should leave while you can. My people have guns, you don't. And it's interesting, the wolves just basically using blunt objects, hand weapons. They have no guns whatsoever, except for the ones that they take from the victims that they killed in the city. And the big thing for me, the curious part was when Morgan basically says to the wolf fight he's talking to, he says, you guys have a choice in what you're doing here. And he responds back by saying, no, we really don't. So that begs the question, which is really interesting, is could the wolves be playing the part of puppets? Is there a puppet master, someone else that's controlling, using them for their advantage? This is probably one of the big things I've been thinking about, and this is what's going to lead me into another topic of possibilities. One of the things that core Walking Dead fans have been more or less salivating over, and I'm going to explain a little bit just for those of you maybe watching this who are not solely caught up with The Walking Dead, or maybe don't know a whole lot about it. You might have been watching it but don't know the logistics of it and ins and outs. One of the things we've been watching for is the appearance of the character of Negan. Now, Negan is in the comic book series, which we know the Walking Dead TV show is based off of the Walking Dead comic book series written by Robert Kirkman, which, again, the show doesn't exactly parallel the comic books, but some things have happened and similarities have been coming into play where we see some things transpiring from the comics into the TV show. But Negan is in the comic books, one of the biggest and baddest characters, and biggest threats to the group in all. I mean, even more so than the Governor. As you guys, those of you watching the show again, remember the Governor several seasons back. And it's interesting because the debate there has been too is when will we see him? Will we see him? At what point in the show is he going to come in? Now, we saw maybe a teaser for him last season. My prediction was I didn't think at this point in the series where we are at now, depending, because I think now, again, as we've all, most of you probably have heard, if not all of you who are watching again, The Walking Dead has been renewed by AMC for a 7th season, so we know we're getting a new season coming up, starting up next fall. But I think, honestly, it's still a little early to be introducing a character of that magnitude, especially in the villain role, because that's a pretty big part to play, unless he's going to be around for a while as a pure antagonist who's going to be causing problems for a long-standing period of time, which could happen. Don't get me wrong, but I think it might be a little early yet. But the question really was, could it be a possibility he shows up this season? Now, with this issue with the Wolves in mind, it could be. Now, again, Negan's character is, I picture him sort of a hard, kind of Bronxish kind of guy, big, bulky. His weapon of pure choice is a baseball bat, which he nicknamed Lucille. And his method of utilizing that is by bashing people's skulls in. That's basically his method of brutality that he uses. Negan is the band of what I call his unmarried men. They're about 50 strong, and basically their role in the apocalypse is they're also in the sense of like the wolves, they're nomads. They kind of travel around and they sort of stumble upon groups of survivors where they say basically, yeah, we'll offer you. I'll tell you what, you invite us into your camp. You provide us food, you provide us shelter, any necessity we need. We'll offer you protection. We're a bunch of big guys. We can do it. And as long as you keep us happy, we'll do that. Otherwise, we're going to be forced to kill you. So basically, it's a basically blackmailing situation where he's going to give them no choice. Because obviously, some groups probably could fight him off, but again, with the manpower that he has in his possession there with all those guys and the weapons that they carry, not likely a lot of groups are going to do that. So of course we're going to bow to that will. Actually reminds me of one of my favorite Disney movies, A Bug's Life. If those of you, I'm sure a lot of you probably have seen it, with the ants and the grasshoppers. It's very, very similar to that, where the ants basically pick the food for the grasshoppers, where the grasshoppers say, yeah, we'll, as long as you keep us fed, we'll offer you protection and things will go great. So it's basically the same version of that. So how I think this ties in is could Negan be using the wolves as sort of a means to eliminate possible threats of communities and groups that he thinks would threaten his dominance more or less? Has he been watching Alexandria for a long time? Does he fear that they might become posing a threat to his cushy, cozy lifestyle in the apocalypse? There's all these little possibilities, but with that in mind, I keep thinking to myself, foresee I don't foresee the end of the Wolves just yet, if that's a playing factor into it. Now, again, it may or may not, but it's an interesting thought provoker because we don't know for sure. But again, The Walking Dead always leaves these little hints and little doorways open, so we just don't know for sure. But it could go either way. So, but at this point, I'm going to go. Even though I'm at 50-50 with the question: will we see the Wolves again, or have we seen the last of the Wolves? I'm going to say no at this point. I think the Negan option is still a possibility, but and again, from this other reason too, is that he could be blackmailing the Wolves. Maybe he's controlling the primary party of the group, and the few Wolves that we saw come into Alexandria are probably just the ones doing the bidding of what Negan wants. That's a possibility as well. So we'll have to wait and see. I think it's a reasonable suspicion that we could look that way, but we won't know until the season progresses and we go from there. So that would be fun to watch. I'm certainly going to look forward to that and see if my theories are correct or not. So going on, the next question I want to look at is, and this has sort of been asked actually kind of before the season started, but it's been kind of frequented now since the series has begun. The season has begun, the season 6, and that is, to basically put it in a nutshell, is what's up with Morgan? And basically, again, if you've been a diehard fan of the show, if you've been watching from the beginning, you know that we've been waiting to see Morgan basically catch up with Rick and the others, because we've only ever seen him. His biggest appearance was when he met Rick in the beginning in the premiere in season 1, episode 1. When the apocalypse first happened, he's the one that helped integrate Rick into what's life as it was. While Rick was unconscious, he didn't know anything of the apocalypse that was happening. So Morgan kind of helped teach him and show him the ropes, and Rick in turn gave him the weapons, and so they had this bond, this friendship and relationship that grew. And then from that point, we saw nothing of Morgan again until season 3, and again that was mostly brief, 1 episode, and gave us a little more insight where he had been in between. We saw seeing him in season 1 up until season 3, um, which we know in the beginning, basically Morgan was surviving with his son Dwayne. He was also with his wife Jenny, who she did die, and Morgan didn't have the heart to bring her down, so they basically were keeping her close by. Then we find later in season 3, Morgan is held up in a different town. We find out, unfortunately, that Dwayne has been bitten and subsequently, met his demise, ironically, by his mother, Morgan's wife, which finally pushes Morgan to the point where he's able to take her and shoot her and put her down. So, and then of course we see Morgan again in season 5. He's trailing Rick and the others, from Terminus. He's following the clues, the signs, and he kind of more or less kind of is on their heels and catches up. And then, as we saw at the end of season 5, he finally does catch up and is reunited with Rick. So now the question is what do we see from him now coming up this season as he begins to integrate with the group? Now, one thing I want to know too, which I'm sure a lot of you guys do want to know as well. We saw this unique fighting style that Morgan has subsequently acquired. Now, the big question is where did he get it from? So, obviously he had to come across somebody who knew the skills to teach him that. I mean, Morgan, up until that point, had no knowledge of those fighting methods at all. And it's pretty unique style. It's pretty, the style, it's very flashy, but very, it's that good martial arts kind of feel. So he had to have been instructed by somebody, and that's the question, is who? And there's some possible theories there. We know that, again, a lot of the photos that came from the shoot, it looks like the character Paul Monroe, also known as Jesus, another character from the comic book series who comes from another walled community called Hilltop. Another more like Daryl, more badass, and maybe even more so than Daryl. His fighting skills is similar, and we know he shows up at some point in the season because he's been spotted, at least an actor that looks a lot like him from the comic books has been on set. So perhaps Morgan ran across him, and while they were roughing it together, he learned a few things there. This is a good possibility. We don't know for sure, but I'd like to at least speculate that it could be a good chance a likely reason. Um, Obviously, it's a good chance we're going to find out tonight. Tonight's episode, episode 4, Walking Dead from season 6, is going to be a 90-minute episode, which will be great. Is going to be a Morgan episode, which is something that again we've all really been clamoring for and really wanted. So it'll be nice to see the fill-in, the tie-ins of where Morgan was, where he came from, everything in between. So I think that's pretty much going to answer this question of what's up with Morgan. Um, and we'll find out tonight. But it'll be interesting to see where they kind of go with this, as far as explaining in detail, and then and then maybe hopefully give us some indication of what Morgan's role will be with the group now that he's finally settled and there and part of them again, or with them actually, and part of Rick again. So interesting for sure. So we'll see as that goes, and then we'll get that answer hopefully tonight. So the next questions I want to get to, those kind of take care of the smaller ones. I want to get to probably the first of two major questions that we got from The Walking Dead from last weekend. Um, and again, I'll ask the question and I'm going to explain to you again if you're not, I'm fully up with The Walking Dead or not familiar too much with the comic books, and you might wonder what the relevance here is, but it's a big question nonetheless. And the question is, and again, what we saw from last episode is, will Rick lose his hand? Now, this is a big topic to debate and discuss because in the comic book series, again, if you are not familiar, and I don't want to spoil anything. If you're reading the comics and you haven't gotten this far yet, don't watch this part. Turn this video off, go away, come back later. But Rick does in fact lose his hand in the comic book series. Now, there's several theories here because, again, there's been a lot of debate going back and forth. Will this happen? Won't it happen? I'm more inclined to think that it won't, simply because, and I know somebody had commented, I read this online, I think it was off of Google, that Robert Kirkman, the creator of the Walking Dead comic book series, who's also been a big help with the television series, has said that he felt he made a mistake in amputating Rick's hand because he felt like it debilitated the character too much, where it kind of eliminated any chance to do a substantial storyline with them, and that he really did not want to do that in the TV series because he wanted all the characters to have, the ability to have substantial roles and be featured in certain episodes where it's just them, or that they're not being diminished in any way. So I'm more inclined to lean that way. However, there are some interesting facts to look at. First of all, let's look at that scene and look what happened. So in that episode, this was kind of flashing back to when, while the Alexandria was being under attack by the wolves and the horn was going off, everybody's kind of going into a panic. Rick, Michonne, and Glenn, along with a couple of the other Alexandrians, they had Gabe, Sturgis, Heath, Annie, David, and there was one other guy, I can't remember what his name is, the color gentleman, but we're going to call him Paul just for namesake, just so we can discuss this. They go off, and basically Rick tells Glenn and Michonne that, and actually the others address as well, that he has an idea that he's going to go back to the checkpoint where they had the flares and they had the wall set up, the temporary wall, which they used an RV to kind of hold the wall up. He said he wants to grab the RV. He's going to see if he can help, push the walkers back in the direction of the main herd and use that as sort of a cattle maneuver strategy where he can go and kind of swing them back in the right direction. But he volunteers to go alone, which of course Glenn and Michonne protest because they feel he needs to have someone with him. But he says no, he can move faster, and their primary focus is to keep moving back towards Alexandria, to get the others back, try to make it back, see what's going on, and try to get ahead of the herd, and etc. So in doing that, though, he does pull Michonne and Glenn aside at one point and says, look, you have to realize some of these guys, the Alexandrians that are with us, they're probably not going to make it back. But you got to keep going anyway. And no matter what you come across, whatever's in front of you, kill it. Don't hesitate. Don't ask questions. So as they depart and break off, Rick begins to hustle at a fast pace to get to the RV and to try to get things back in order before everything falls into complete chaos with the herd of walkers. In the process, Rick does move along the road, and he comes across a small group of walkers. I'd say about 3 or 4 of them that are feeding on fresh meat. They're feeding, I'm not sure if it's a dog or if it's a fresh human that was killed, something. But in the process, as he approaches cautiously, he gets radioed by Glenn, which draws the attention of the walkers, which with which Rick realizes, well, now I have to dispatch them because obviously I can't sneak up anymore. They've spotted me. He begins to engage them, and he pulls out a switchblade, which he opens the knife, and he stabs the first walker in the head, subsequently putting that walker down. As he retracts the knife out, he looks and realizes that the blade has broken off. So he's like, great, the knife broke. Now here's the interesting part. We're not, and then this is where we're gonna have to break this down and discuss this a little bit. The events that happen next with the next walker that approaches that's coming right after the first walker is a little unclear. Now, the basic question that's being asked, or the basic synopsis that people are going with, is that uh, we see it seems like Rick gets bitten on the hand. Now, I just want to kind of put this to rest and say I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's true because if you look at the angle of where Rick was when the second walker came at him, he was more or less on the side of the head. I think ultimately what happened is Rick somehow either got the blade out that got lost in the other walker's head, or he just kind of grabbed on hard to the handle, and I think it dug into his hand, in which he stabs the second walker in the head. So basically, we're looking at, I think it's a deep cut on Rick's hand because the reason we're asking this is we notice that Rick pays special attention to that hand. He keeps looking at it. The music is kind of ominous, thinking, oh, is something going to happen? So that kind of points to that the injury to his hand is something significant. Now, I think that what could happen, which is a possibility, is if he did cut his hand, he did jab the hand into the head of the second walker where he went all the way in. So there's a possibility that he could be contaminated and the blood could have mixed and things of that, something of that nature could be a possibility. But I think if he got bit, although for argument's sake, I will say this: I thought to myself, well, if he got bit, he knew what to do with Herschel. Just hack your arm off right away, hack the hand off, and don't worry about it. But looking at it from a realistic standpoint, if he does that, it's going to cause a lot of blood loss. And Rick is really not. He's in the middle of nowhere, has no supply, so it's not the best idea for him to do that. So then I'm thinking, oh, okay, well then that leaves that door open still. But I don't think he got bit. I think it's more or less just a deep cut in the hand that he suffered. So we'll have to wait and see. Now it's interesting because there are always some teasers going around. The biggest one is the looking on social media, which I do follow a lot of the Walking Dead actors there. On Twitter, actor Norman Reedus, who plays Daryl Dixon, posted on his channel @BigBaldFreak a photo of a severed hand with a wedding band on it, and the caption reading "divorced." This is interesting. Is he taking a pot shot and saying, yeah, Rick is going to lose his hand? So it's just kind of a misdirection, which has happened in the past, so it may or may not be, but it's very interesting to throw that in there. So it could be a possibility that Rick does lose his hand. And I guess, time will tell. We're going to see in the coming episodes because if there's something really wrong there, he's going to slowly deteriorate and have to make a decision at some point. Now, at the end of the episode, I was more concerned, actually. We saw that Rick was in the RV. The RV kind of stalled as he got back into it. I'm sorry. Once he got to the RV, he had driven off, and then at some point he, slowed down. The RV kind of stalled out. He was attacked by the wolves that left Alexandria that Morgan had faced, and so at first I thought, since they jumped him and caught him off guard in the RV, this could be it for Rick. Again, most of us feel that he'll last quite a while, but you don't know. There's always that possibility they could the Walking Dead, the executives could really throw us for a curve and really just shock us out of our pants. We don't know. But that coupled with, we saw he didn't. We saw him dispatch them and also the other wolves that are along the side of the RV, which I thought was cool, how he just kind of took aim and just shot right through the side of the RV and took out the remaining threat there. And then, of course, the scene pans out. We see that the herd of walkers that broke away are starting to catch up to where they're at now and getting closer to Alexandria and funneling all around the RV where Rick is, and we're not sure if he'll get out of that or not. We believe he will, but it kind of leaves room for some speculation. So we'll find out in the coming weeks in those episodes and see how that plays out. But that's a very good question, and some of these questions we asked so far were really good as well. Good food for thought, and think about these. And again, if you have any more ideas or suggestions, if you have your own theories, please feel free to leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Let me know what you think. If you agree with me, or if you have a totally different outlook, or if you disagree with me entirely and you have your own basic theory or whatever you have concocted and thought up on your own, I want to hear about it. Let me know. That'd be great. I think that's what's the fun about this show is that we as fans of it can be unified because there's something for everyone and there's all kinds of unique experiences going on. There's all kinds of neat mystery and drama, and there's all kinds of things we can talk about. So it kind of adds a nice element to what we've got going on and what the show brings us, and we all love it, and that's why I think the show is doing well, and I think it will continue to do well and go on for quite a while yet. But I'm gonna end this video here, at least this first part, because I want to get to the last question I want to ask, and this is going to take up a video which may not be quite as long as this, but it could be because it's a very, very big topic to be discussed. And again, it's been going up all over social media, all over the internet, and so I want to personally address it, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on it as well too. But I'm going to share a little bit of my thoughts, and then we'll kind of take it from there and see how it goes. But we'll save that for the next part. So thank you guys for watching this video. I'm sorry I was a little uncoordinated. I'm trying to go off my thoughts, and I have a lot of things going through my head, so sometimes I tend to stumble, but I like to get the information out. But I hope it was at least entertaining for you nonetheless. So please, if you like this video, like it, and if you like, please subscribe to our channel. We want to bring more things to the table, so please follow us and be involved. Help us make this channel grow and become great. We have a few things in mind that we're going to do in the future down the road, so if you don't want to miss out on that, again, subscribe, become a part of this channel, be a member, and enjoy all the perks that come with it. You can hit us up at our email address, a to z studios 8985@gmail.com. You can also check us out on Google+. You can leave comments there, questions, anything you want. Feel free to hit us there and leave us. And if you want to leave any positive feedbacks, how you like the videos, just some suggestions for things maybe you want to see down the road, or if you have a favorite show, a book, a movie, any kind of topic you want to discuss, leave it for us to look at, and we'll see if we can get that up for you. We want to accommodate everybody as much as possible, and it all starts with ideas, so please feel free to share with us. So thanks again, though, guys, for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I will be uploading, first I will be shooting the second part of this video and have it up tonight, so you can watch that, because I want to discuss that, even though I know tonight's episode won't necessarily follow with what this question is going to be about. It still kind of plays in. I want to have this as a thought-provoking thing going into the episode maybe next week or the following, because I'm sure that this question is going to be addressed at some point in the coming weeks. So I want you to start thinking about it now. So I'll look forward to seeing the next episode here. The next video will be coming out, and we're going to cover this big topic and discuss it, and it'll be fun. So I'll catch you guys soon. Thanks again. This is JP. I'm out.